Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Galactic Wisdom Podcast. As you can see, I'm still on the road. I should be home from my travels very soon, um, and then I should be able to get back and use my home computer. But for now, I'm still in my car. I went to Area 51, or at least I went up to Tikaboo Peak Mountain and overlooked at Area 51. And I also went to Sedona again, to Bradshaw Ranch. So I've been having some interesting travels. Um, I am the kind of person who likes to experience things for myself. When you experience something for yourself, then you can get direct knowledge, you can get direct proof of things. When you listen to what other people say, which is what you're doing now, listening to me, um, nothing that people say can be taken as proof of anything. Certainly evidence, but not proof of anything. So I hope you enjoy listening to me talking, but nothing I say should be believed. But you can come out and join me on my events if you want to, and then you can experience these things for yourself. So just to give you a quick summary, it was about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, that I went up to Tikaboo Peak and I looked across at Area 51. And on my way, as I'm hiking up the hill there, a big fiery light appeared in the sky while it was still daytime. It merged into view and it merged out of view, and it circled around a bit and did the same thing. It circled around a bit and it did it 4 times. And yeah, it was a non-human technology, and I think it was very likely non-human. Now, around the area of Area 51, where there is very likely very likely humans flying non-human technology, you can't be sure, but they like to keep secret, the humans at Area 51, and this thing was above me as I was approaching Area 51, making itself clearly visible. And so I suspect that that was not humans doing that, but I suspect that that was non-human entities just keeping an eye on me, maybe giving me a little bit of a warning. Hey, maybe you shouldn't go too much closer. Maybe they're in a protective capacity. But that was a cool experience. Now, when I got to the top of Tikaboo Peak, I started recording video, and I have started to look through and edit some of that video, and there are some interesting things on it. And when I get home, when I get back to my computer, and when I get to that video, I am going to process it and condense it down into maybe 30 seconds or a minute, time lapse style, so we can have a look at Area 51 over the period of about an hour. So hopefully that will be something I can show you next week. Also next week, something I discovered on that video, which is quite intriguing, is pretty much as soon as I've set up my camera on the tripod and I've started recording, within a few seconds, the first thing I say is, okay, so here I am at Area 51. And at that moment, in the sky above Area 51, big, bright blue flash. Now, it was distant, so on the screen it doesn't look too big, but it was very interesting. I mean, it's not a flying saucer that you can see, but so it's not particularly impressive to look at, but it's definitely anomalous. It is not lightning. It is not the right color or size or propagation of light to be any human-made aircraft. So yeah, I videoed a UFO or a UAP over Area 51, and I will show that video to you next week. And yes, then I went to Sedona again. Sedona's a fascinating place. A lot of really cool people there, great energy there, very spiritual place. And I went back to Bradshaw Ranch, which is where maybe 3 months ago, I encountered an orb, a floating blue orb that I interacted with. And I did not see that orb again. I met up with some friends there. We went out to Bradshaw Ranch and went onto the ranch itself, and I did contact meditation. And during the contact meditation, we were seeing beings psychically who were coming to us and communicating with us. So that was very cool. One of my friends, while there, saw a a figure walking behind the buildings at Bradshaw Ranch, and the way she described it was it was like a void, like a dark void of black in the shape of a humanoid figure walking along, but it was more like a hole, like a black hole in the shape of a humanoid being walking along behind the buildings. And around the edges of that black void, there was light, like a glow to it. And unfortunately, that wasn't something that we caught on video, but that sort of thing happens a lot at Bradshaw Ranch. There were some other weird things going on at Bradshaw Ranch. The same person, um, she went into Bradshaw Ranch wearing a copper ring, and she lost it at Bradshaw Ranch. When we came out of Bradshaw Ranch, she looked at her hand. She had lost her ring, a very distinctive copper ring. And I was considering maybe going back the next day, seeing if I could find the ring. But when we got out of Bradshaw Ranch, and the next day when she eventually got back to her vehicle, her car, where she had left her bags, and she's looking through her bags, she found the copper ring in the bag, which makes no sense at all, unless some kind of consciousness from Bradshaw Ranch maybe found the ring, maybe saw that she lost it, maybe wanted to return it to her. It was just very odd that it's sort of an impossibility unless you bring in some kind of paranormal explanations. Also very strange is I noticed something stuck to the back window of my car when I got out, a little black disc that seemed to be magnetically sticking to my back window, which is weird, of my car, because my back window is not magnetic. But it was this little black disc, and my friend, the same person, saw this little black disc and said, "What's that?" That's the kind of disc that she's put on her phone to, I don't know, keep off stray magnetic fields or something. And she checked her phone, and her disc was still there, but there was like an identical one that had been put on the back window of my car. It's just very very strange things happening that don't quite make sense. So yes, I've traveled around for a couple of weeks, and now I'm close to being back home, and I will be back home probably for another couple of weeks. I will do a couple of weeks of regular podcasts. I will do some video editing of all of the footage that I've collected actually over the last few months. I will share some of that with you next week, and also the week after. And then I'm probably going to head off again. This time I'm probably going to go in smaller steps, go from city to city. And as well as doing contact events, what I would like to do is bring people together just for like friendship, just social gathering in the park, like picnic in the park or something, and just bring people together in friendship, in unity, unifying, in peace, in friendship, putting aside our differences. And so I don't know, I might even call it the friendship tour. I'm not sure, but that's something I'm going to be doing, and it'll be for a couple of months, and I will try and get around as much of the US as is possible. So that's something to look out for. Now, today's show, I have entitled The Beauty and Horror of Emotions. As you know, through experiencing emotions yourself, sometimes emotions are wonderful things. We've got very positive emotions like love and joy, ecstasy, happiness. We've got more sort of neutral uh, um, emotions um, like contentment, um, satisfaction, um, feelings of security. I'm not sure all of the emotions have names attached to them, but then we have these darker emotions, sadness, unhappiness, um, pain, suffering, um, and hatred. Um, whether we call them emotions or feelings, there's a blur on the definition of some of these things, and it doesn't really matter for the purposes of this show. But I'm going to consider all of those things in today's show. And um, if we're trying to understand emotions, there's the temptation with some people to, when they encounter things or talk about things that they don't fully understand, they make up beliefs, stories, myths. Um, they have um, they tend to categorize them in ways that are more magical or mystical, fantastical, rather than truly understanding them. If something amazing happens that you don't understand, it's easy to describe it as a miracle or magic, which is basically fantasy, rather than um, either accepting that you don't understand it uh, or trying to understand it. Um, and I'm not trying to judge people here, but what I encourage people to do is try and understand. But when we do understand things like emotions, like love, a lot of people will say, "Oh, you shouldn't try and understand love. Love is just this magical, wonderful thing that exists in the universe." Well, understanding is good, and if we can understand how love, how positive emotions, or any emotion, where they exist within us, how they exist within us, um, in a more uh, logical, real, um, we could say scientific, but we can go deeper than scientific and say logical way. Then um, from that understanding, uh, more can be understood. From a foundation of understanding one element, one component of things like emotions, so much more can be understood, like our own psychology, like our relationships that we have with others, why uh, emotions compel people to do good things and compel people to do bad things. Um, it's not all just magical. It's not. I mean, it does have spiritual components to it, but it's a real, tangible. These are real tangible things that exist in our world. So, as a scientist, as a logician, and as somebody that tries to understand, I'm going to delve into the realities of emotion during this show. It's okay if you don't agree with the things I'm saying. I would only ask that we stay peaceful with each other if you do disagree on anything that I say. So emotions. I'm just going to tell you what I've worked out the truth to be, and I know that it's going to annoy some people, but I'm just going to go with it. We evolved naturally over time, and emotions evolved naturally over time with us. Emotions have an evolutionary purpose. Um, if we, for example, let's talk about let's talk about love. If when you get into a relationship with somebody, like, for example, a man and a woman come together, um, and um, well, if we break it down just to the reproductive, biological um, purpose in a man and a woman coming together, if you condense it down just into that, there doesn't need to be love in that relationship. Yeah, man and a woman can come together, have kids, and therefore, propagation of DNA. It doesn't need that love. But if you have that love, if a man and a woman, when they come together, if they have that love, if they fall in love with each other, then um, it acts to keep those people together, to bind them together, to look out for each other, um, and also then with their children. If you love your children, it binds you together, and parents then uh, care more about their children than they do about other people, often who are not their children. This binding, this feeling of love, is an evolutionary advantage that that helps children. Well, there's different stages. It helps couples stay together for long enough that they have children. Then after they have children, it keeps them together even through um, uh, periods of difficulties. If you love somebody, even if you have an argument, often you can work through that argument and you stay together. Um, then you love your kids, and that is a binding that keeps you with the children, keeps the children with you, and helps them to stay alive. Scientifically, what's happening is that emotion of love is greatly increasing the chances of one's DNA, the DNA of the parents, propagating into the future, and therefore um, the, the genetics that results in the characteristic of loving people, loving partners, and loving children, that gets passed on. That characteristic of lovingness gets passed on to the children, and the emotion propagates into the future in the species, in the population. And so, if you go far back enough in time, the little single-celled microscopic um, organisms that evolved originally in the oceans of the Earth, like the ocean called Panthalassa, they probably didn't have much capacity to love. But over time, when the feeling of emotions, the psychology of emotions, when that would come in through different random, what's the word I'm looking for, mutations, combinations of genes that result in that characteristic, when that would come along, it would propagate. Now, there's going to be a lot of people who don't like that I'm distilling something as beautiful and wonderful, spiritual, meaningful as love into scientific terms. But that doesn't mean to say that it's not true. That's not, evidence that it's not true. That's just a personal preference. Um, I think you can understand something like love and not have it detract from the beauty of love and of the emotion. Those of you who know me personally will know that I'm a very loving person and I care a lot about others. I'm a very empathic person. And in fact, my vision of the universe, of reality that I try and promote, is universal peace, universal love, universal well-being. Love is a very, very special thing. And but it's also something that we can understand. Um, let's take a look at a dark emotion. Let's take a look at something like fear. If any organism, when they encounter something new that they don't understand, or something that they think could be a threat to them, it's common for humans to feel fear. Other animals, you also feel these emotions too. For example, yeah, for example, at Bradshaw Ranch, a second person that I went with to Bradshaw Ranch, inside one of the buildings, there was a bat flying around, and the building was dark, no electricity. This bat is flying around, and so people couldn't see the bat, but in my night vision camera, it was very clear there was a bat flying around. And when I said, "Oh, there's a bat flying around in here," some of the people that were there were just like, "Okay, that's fine." One of the people was dead scared. Were those bats that just flew past me? No, those were just birds. Okay, I thought that would be a bit of a coincidence if I just had two bats flying over me, but they were birds. Yep. Okay. So one of the person, as soon as I said, "Oh, there's bats in here," couldn't take that, was dead scared, and went immediately out of the house, out of the abandoned sort of what's the word? Not demolished, derelict house at Bradshaw Ranch, which is funny because they were kind of fine with the idea of meeting ghosts, fine with the idea of these dark entities walking around and aliens and paranormal interdimensional portals that you might step into and find yourself shooting down a wormhole into other parts of the universe. But the idea of bats, nope, couldn't handle that, and she laughed. So there are some people who have this fear when they encounter an animal that they're not comfortable with: snakes, spiders, bats, in all sorts of insects. If you have somebody that is scared when they see something like that, it causes them to back away from that animal. That fear causes an action, a reaction. It causes people to back away from those animals. Now, if those animals are not harmful, well, it's not really a problem to back away from them. You might lose a bit of the beauty of interacting with other species, but it doesn't harm you to back away from them. But if you don't have that fear, and if it causes you to go, "Oh, look, there's a cute snake on the floor, I'm going to go and pick it up," and well, that snake might bite you, and it might be a rattlesnake. The same might be true of a spider. There are tarantulas walking around on the ground around Bradshaw Ranch. There are rattlesnakes there. So having a fear of things that we don't know can be considered to be a survival advantage. It gives you an advantage over others who don't have that fear. If you have a fear of jumping off of a mountain or wearing a parachute, you're probably not going to do it, and therefore you're not going to get killed if the parachute doesn't open. But every year, people around the world who do that sort of thing, those extreme sports, every year, people do get killed. People who jump off mountains often get killed. So to have a fear of something is a survival advantage, and therefore that fear is propagated into often one's children. I know it's not just DNA, it's not just nature, it's also nurture, but it is definitely within our DNA to have fear of certain things. If we have that fear, then it's a survival advantage. So what I'm trying to suggest here is that emotions are things that benefit us. They They're survival advantages. They're things we've evolved with and they have evolved within us to serve an evolutionary natural selection process to assist in our survival. That is where emotions come from. Now, if we then understand where emotions come from, then we can analyze them a bit more deeply and say, well, that's where they come from, but are they good? Are they bad? Because that's something different. Whether something is good or bad, morally, and even good or bad spiritually, is a different thing from whether they're good or bad for our survival. There are things that human beings do which assist in our survival, which are not good. If you are good at stealing, if you steal from people, that's good for you. It gives you an advantage, and it disadvantages others. It gives you a survival advantage. But it's not moral. There are, forcing oneself on somebody in ways that are extremely illegal might even, in horrific scenarios, result in propagation of one's DNA, children. But that forcing of oneself on somebody is one of the most immoral things that anybody could do. Um, but so the feeling that causes such acts is there within some people, but it is highly immoral. In my everyday life, I see an experience around me, people putting others down in highly dishonest ways, in ways that sometimes result in can result in even the death of that person. If not the death, certainly it can result in friends of the people turning away from them. It can result in people failing to get jobs. If people are dishonest, make dishonest claims about people, there is this idea of dishonesty can be beneficial to the people who are being dishonest. We're in competition with each other in terms of nature, in terms of our survival, in terms of resources, in terms of friends, followers. And if somebody comes along and is fine being dishonest about somebody else, that elevates them, gives them advantage, and puts the others at a disadvantage. That is dishonest, that is immoral, but it gives the dishonest people a survival advantage. I wonder, if I were to ask you the question, do you know of anybody in politics whose dishonesty has given them an advantage? I think that everybody here would be able to say, yeah, I know of a few people who are like that. And so is the emotions and the feelings that compel us to act in those ways, can they be bad? Can things like fear be bad? Can things like love be considered to be good? Well, those are very important questions. And to answer those questions, we need to understand, what do we mean by good and bad? Good is good and bad. If we want to understand them more, we simply add to our question, is something good or is something bad? We can add to that question, well, is that good for who? Is it good for this person? Is it good for that person? Is something bad for this person? Bad for that person? If a mountain lion eats a rabbit, then that act of eating the rabbit is good for the mountain lion, but it's bad for the rabbit. Good and bad are not absolutes. Good is only an absolute if it's if the actions are good for everybody. If the mountain lion and the rabbit decide to sit down and eat grass together, that would be that would be absolutely good. But that doesn't happen very often in nature. So absolute goods are not all that common. So let's think about love. The actions that love causes, are they all good for everybody? I'm struggling now to think of examples where loving somebody results in a bad thing happening. Well, I suppose, okay, you love somebody, but they're already in a relationship with somebody else. So you could go and kill their partner or disadvantage their partner by slandering them or something. I suppose that's bad. That's bad for the existing partner. And it's immoral. So love, yes, can lead to bad things happening. Love can lead to bad actions. Okay. Is it possible that hatred can lead to bad things? Clearly, yes. You hate somebody, so you're going to do something bad to them. That's a common occurrence. And so that emotion is can cause bad things. But it doesn't have to. You can feel hatred for somebody, but hatred for somebody or something that somebody has done, but choose not to act in a bad way. So I'm going to separate out the emotion or the feeling from the action that sometimes it causes. You can feel bad things, you can have bad emotions, but if you don't act upon them, then that there actually is not bad, or there's not bad associated with them. Bad is how you affect people negatively. And if a bad feeling, you don't act upon that in a negative way, then it's not bad. And let's take fear. If you feel fear of a situation, let's say walking into Bradshaw Ranch, if you're fearful when you go into a place like Bradshaw Ranch, well, what might that fear cause you to do if you encounter something at Bradshaw Ranch? If you encounter something and you're fearful, it could cause you to attack that thing, attack that ghost, attack that skinwalker, attack that alien. That would be a bad thing. So fear can lead to pain and suffering. I'm going to start to sound like Yoda. But it doesn't have to. You can conquer your fears. And that is very important for people, I suggest, to do. To not let negative emotions or darker emotions like fear affect how you treat others. So basically, I think you shouldn't let any of your emotions negatively affect how you treat anyone. But fear comes up a lot. I have a lot of people who I hear say fear is the root of all evil. Fear is the sort of the foundational negative darkness that that a lot of people that causes a lot of people to do a lot of bad things. I kind of disagree with that. If you hate somebody, you can hate somebody not because you fear them. You can hate somebody because you've seen them do bad things, like steal from a neighbor. That doesn't mean you fear them. Fear often doesn't lead to good things, but fear isn't in everything bad. Somebody that now sometimes it is somebody that might, let's say, a leader who fears the people in another country, a neighboring country, he or she might decide to invade that other country or attack that other country because he's scared of what they might do. He's fearful of them developing a nuclear weapon, for example. So that fear can cause that leader to get their troops together and go and invade or attack that country that he's fearful of. That can happen, but I'm not sure if a lot of the people who are out there in the world, leaders out there in the world who have attacking people as part of their attacking other countries or attacking people as part of their way of life, I don't know that it's always out of fear. It could be out of greed. It could be out of religious ideology. It could be a power move. It doesn't have to be fear based. So some people might wonder, why is this important? It's important because people to analyze why we're doing things helps us to understand why we're doing things, which can help us to better target our own actions towards doing good things and not doing bad things. And when we simply say all of the negative things that happen in the world are caused by fear, fear is what we all have to fight and overcome, I kind of have to disagree with that. I have to say, well, that doesn't seem accurate to me. People say it, and it's almost like some like a poke at somebody, like an attack on somebody else. Like you're doing that not because you're strong, not because you're just strong or greedy, or you're trying to get more power. You're doing it because you're scared. It's almost like an attack, a criticism of somebody, an insult, but it's not based in truth a lot of the time. So I don't think that fear is the root of all evil. I think that fear is a natural instinct that we all have, um, and it can cause us to act in ways that are bad, but we can ascend above that, and we can get on top of it, and we can um, be strong enough in ourselves that we don't let that fear result in something negative happening. For example, when I do contact events, whether it's going into a haunted place or sitting out in an isolated location and asking a craft to come in, interestingly enough, another person who came with me at Bradshaw Ranch was really excited to go there. But then when I suggested that we ask an alien craft to come down and land, this person was scared of that idea and said, "Oh, no, we're not going to do that, because when these craft get close to you, you can get radiation burns and things." This person was scared of that. Their fear was controlling them. Now, sometimes when you analyze your fear, you can intellectually understand that, okay, yeah, it's sensible to have that fear and it's sensible to act on it. We don't want to go into a dark cave where there's growling inside, where they're in a habitat where bears live. Being scared of bears is sensible. And not walking into a bear cave that's full of rattlesnakes and tarantulas and great white sharks and things, it's sensible not to walk into that cave. But if we look at the contact experiences that a lot of people are having around the world, they're positive experiences. These beings are coming to us and giving us advice, trying to assist us, even healing us. And there is very clear evidence that these beings are not here to try and eat us or take us over, or take over our bodies or take over our planet. They've been here for hundreds of thousands of years. and they interact with us in ways that are peaceful. So having fear for these beings is understandable because it's a natural instinct, but it's not. It's not health. What's the right way to put this? If we could overcome our fear for non-human entities, then it would help to treat them better and to form friendships with them and to join their interplanetary, interdimensional communities. So when people come to my events and they say, I'm actually feeling a bit scared, I will tell them, that's okay. That's okay. But what we're going to try and do is overcome that by filling ourselves with light and love and radiating that light and love outwards and letting that be the dominant force in this situation. I feel that twinge of fear when I wake up to find that there's a non-human entity standing next to my bed looking at me. My natural human instinct is, fear, because I'm in a vulnerable position and there's something I don't fully understand standing right there looking at me. That can instill fear in me, and it does. But when that happens to me, my mind and my morality, they take over. They overpower that more primitive feeling. They overpower it and push it away. I fill myself with light. I fill myself with love. It was a couple of years ago that I was staying with a friend in Las Vegas, and I woke up in the night in their home. And when I woke up, I could see a short being, a grey-like being, with its head maybe a yard and a half away from my head, standing next to the bed looking at me. I felt that fear, but then I pushed it away. I filled myself with light and I filled myself with love, and I said mentally, telepathically, it's okay, thank you for being here. And at that point I realized that there was another being behind me, probably smaller, maybe a child, a grey-like child, kneeling on the pillow next to me, sort of on all fours, looking up at me like that. And again, that's the kind of situation when I tell that to people, some people is like, oh, that's scary. But I'd filled myself with light and love, and instead of feeling fear, I reached out to that being and I just sort of cupped with my hands its chin there in sort of a friendly manner. And it was very sort of beautiful, nice, connecting moment of interaction with me and non-human entities. So we can overcome these dark feelings. So I'm gonna sort of recap a little bit on what I'm talking about. We've got positive emotions, we've got negative emotions, and they can all serve useful purposes. Even negative emotions can serve useful purposes. It's not the emotion itself, it's not what you feel that is good or bad. It is how you act upon those feelings. Your actions, so your emotions don't themselves directly impact the other people, the other life forms around you. It is your actions that directly impact, in a positive or a negative way, the conscious entities around you. And when your actions affect them in a negative way, then that is bad. You are doing something bad to them. When your actions affect the people or the conscious life forms, the animals, the spirits, the Bigfoot, whatever it is that's out there, when your actions affect them in a way that is negative for them, that harms them in some way, harms or hinders them in some way, then that is bad. So we've got actions that are bad when we negatively affect. We've got actions that are good when we positively affect others. It's our actions that are good or bad, not our feelings. So if you're the kind of person who sometimes has dark thoughts, like, well, whatever the dark thoughts are, that doesn't make you a bad person. That just makes you a person. It makes you a person who's evolved naturally to feel um, feelings, emotions, instincts, impulses that can cause you to survive, can increase your chances of survival. So if purely surviving is the best thing, is what we're going to define as good for us, then just follow your feelings. And a lot of people say, well, I just follow my feelings. I just trust my feelings on everything. That is not going to result in you being a moral person. If you trust your feelings, that is not going to result in you being a good person. That's going to result in you feeling good about you doing what is good for you, regardless of how it affects others. Don't just trust your feelings. Don't just go with your feelings. If you hear, let's say you have a friend, let's call that friend Andy, your friend Andy, and another of your friends comes to you and says, you know what, Andy is a serial killer. You got to stay away from that guy. Then what people tend to do is feel like, if Andy's a serial killer, maybe I shouldn't be hanging out with Andy. Do I really want to be friends with Andy if he's a serial killer? And what is the safest thing to do in terms of surviving and propagating DNA? And what is the best for you? Well, the best thing for you is probably to stay away from Andy. Is that moral, though? Do you just believe the person who tells you that Andy is a serial killer? Well, people lie. People pass on lies to each other. People pass on what they hear, and rumors and whatever spread. And people have even been convicted for killing others and then 30 years later been exonerated, let off. It's really hard for you to know. It's almost impossible for you to know if Andy is really a serial killer. The safe thing to do is keep away from Andy. But Andy, are we going to assume guilt? Or are we going to assume innocent until proven guilty? This is a moral dilemma. And Andy might well be innocent. And it might well be that the people that are saying bad things about Andy are lying or just passing off on false information. They might have read somewhere that Andy is a serial killer, and so they just go around telling people Andy's a serial killer. That doesn't mean they know it to be true. So what is the moral thing to do in that sort of situation? Well, the moral thing to do is assume innocence and to continue to be nice and friendly to Andy. That's the moral thing to do. But if he's a serial killer, that puts you at risk. So what are you to do? Are you to do what is best for you? Or are you to do what is the most moral? That's the sort of hard situation that a lot of people find themselves in all the time. What I personally do is I'm always nice to everybody. I always try, to the extent that is practically and humanly possible, I try to be nice to everybody. I try to assume innocence until proven guilty. And even if people are proved guilty, I try to be nice to them. Um, doesn't mean I need to accept or condone anything bad that they're doing, and maybe I will talk to them and try to prevent them from doing bad things in the future. But I'm not going to be unkind to them. I'm not going to punish them. I might try and stop them from doing bad things in the future, but not in an unpleasant way, not in an unkind way. Universal peace, universal love. Universal love means universal caring and universal well-being. So I just recommend being nice to everybody. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I have friends who say that love is the answer to everything. Love is a good start, but being good is the next best step along the way. Treat others in ways that are always good, and even when you encounter a mountain lion or a human that is a serial killer, um, only treat those in bad ways in order to prevent them from harming you and the people around you. Don't launch yourself into being bad towards them, because that's requiring you to make judgments that you're not qualified to make. So that's a little bit about emotions, and I just encourage. I guess the key takeaways here are emotions themselves, feelings, thoughts, instincts are not bad. It's just what we have, what we're born with, and it is our actions which are good and bad. So treat people well, treat animals well, treat spirits well, treat aliens well, assume innocence until proven guilty, and treat guilty people well, good also, to the extent that is practically possible. Those are my little words of galactic wisdom for today. I hope you've managed to derive some kind of usefulness from them. I will be back next week with some videos from Area 51. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful week, weekend, year, decade, life. I wish you all peace, love, and well-being. Take care. Goodbye for now.